Let's queer up trans rights. Nigerian trans TikTok star Abuja area mama found dead. The battered body of Abuja area mama, a popular 33-year-old transgender TikTok influencer, was discovered along a highway in Abuja, Nigeria. Known for her candid posts about life as a transgender woman and sex worker in Nigeria, Mama was reportedly on her way to visit her boyfriend when she was murdered. Josephine Ade, a police spokesperson, confirmed the discovery of Mama's body and stated that Abuja Chief of Police Bennett Igwe has ordered a, quote, thorough and discreet investigation. In her last TikTok post, Mama wrote, quote, getting ready to go and see my boyfriend. It was just hours before her body was found. LGBTQ rights in Nigeria have been increasingly under attack, with many states adopting forms of Sharia law that criminalize same-sex relations and gender expression that does not conform to traditional norms. These laws make same-sex relations punishable by death in some regions, while federal laws carry prison sentences of up to 14 years. Human Rights Watch has also documented the actions of vigilante groups known as Hizbah, who enforce Sharia law outside the legal system, often targeting the LGBTQ community with violence and abuse. The UN has said LGBTQ and especially trans people's safety in Nigeria has become a crisis. Tragic story. Another transgender female murdered. There was one here in Miami, first world, not too long ago, right in front of the place that I work. Before I continue with it, I just wanted to state in all the stories that I read, including in her Instagram, she goes by cross-dresser, a cross-dressing male. And so I think for many people that they've also labeled that as transgender, but just using her words and using her pronouns. She says cross-dressing man and she as a pronoun. I think whenever I read a story about this, I'm so troubled that so many of our trans cross-dressing brothers and sisters feel that they have to resort to prostitution in order to survive. And that's really where this murder rate comes from. It's through the unsafe practices of just being out on the street corner and getting picked up by random people, especially being in a country that is largely under Sharia law or under Sharia law enforcers that decide to impose their own feelings of what the law should be, even if it's not 100% stated. I think that she's totally brave for being able to be this TikTok star and to go out publicly knowing that her country is the way that it is, and to just kind of proudly proclaim her her sexuality and orientation. But I am troubled about it. Just brings up to me the point about prostitution and transgendered people, and what does our community do to help solve that problem. And I hope that maybe on some panels and some other maybe city panels, whatever it is that we can talk about, think tanks, about how we can figure out a way to get transgendered people, and anybody, of course, but specifically transgendered people, transgendered women of color, like how we can keep them safe and off the streets and out of prostitution and help find a better way.
There's a lot you said in there that is worth unpacking, and I want to be clear in saying that I don't think that there is a problem with sex work, although I do see your point about if it is kind of like a last resort, if it is something that you're not willing to do and you find yourself in a position where it's the only thing you think you can do, then perhaps that does resonate with me a little more. But as it stands, I don't think that sex work is a bad thing necessarily.
I don't think you can dispute, though, the danger.
That's where I'm agreeing.
That's what I'm talking about.
And the danger comes from the perpetrator of the crime, not the job of sex work. So if there is a safety issue, we need to go to the criminals and get them off the street and not tell people, don't involve yourself in this. Sex work is work, and it is a viable industry. There are many avenues to it. This person was attacked and killed because a hateful, gross, disgusting person killed them, not because they were a sex worker. I'm sure you were aware, because you said you you've heard many stories like this. There have been trans-identifying people who've been murdered not while performing any sex act, not while doing any sort of sex work, just living their day-to-day life, and they get attacked and murdered. So the issue is the perpetrator of these crimes and not the victims performing a job, is how I feel.
So, and we know too that, you know, it is Nigeria. This has increasing in Nigeria. We hear these stories more frequently coming out of Nigeria, and other places that are, like you said, Sharia law kind of being enforced. And it's important that we remember that these places still exist in the world. You know, even though we kind of sit back here and we think that we have it bad in some ways, and in some ways we do, in other ways, there are people out there in the world that have it a lot worse off than we do.
Sure. I do want to clarify, though, that I have in no way am saying that it's not the perpetrator's fault that put on there.
Understood.
I'm just making sure that we all understand that it is a dangerous situation to be on the street at night, regardless of whether you are selling sex or you're just hanging out. Yeah, whenever you're in a bad part of town or you're in some area in where it's unsafe, it's just unsafe to be out there. And that is the cause of many of the deaths or being in that situation. And so finding the safety in that is where I'm trying to say we need to
I agree with the sentence that just came out of your mouth, but I would change the word cause with circumstance. That is the circumstance in which these people fell victim to a hate crime. It is not always necessarily the cause. So yes, growing up in South Florida, if you walk in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time, there will be danger, fully. I wish it wasn't that way, but it is, especially when you're in areas where the government is actively telling its people, like, it's okay to attack people who are different, then yeah, there is a major issue with your environment. But however, once again, and you're not saying an antithesis to what I'm saying. I'm just making a point to camera. Right. It wasn't the sex work that killed this person. It was the killer that killed this person.
Of course.
And it's the killer that we need to acknowledge and address and penalize. And every person who feels like they want to enact harm on any trans person needs to be afraid to do so, because they need to understand, oh, there is a major consequence for this action.
Right, and also just noting the quote from the officer that it was going to be a discreet investigation, meaning that they're probably going to go soft on whoever they find. Either they're not going to release the identity, and if they do, they're probably going to say, you know, she probably had it coming or something like that. So that's also an issue that I hope that we actually get to the bottom of who did it and that gets publicized.
That's right.
And I do think it is a sobering reminder that we should still fight for our LGBTQ rights, not only just locally, nationally, but globally.
I agree. And this is the most tragic thing there is her last post was, "I'm going to see my boyfriend."
Yeah.
Sad.
Oh, thanks.